Welcome to today's edition of Mental Health Matters. Today we're going to be talking about recovery. I have Talia on the show and she's going to talk about her head injury and how she walked the road of recovery. So get you a snack and get you something to drink and come on back. All right, so Talia, it's about time. I've been trying to get you on a show for it's been at least over a year.
I think it's been 2 years.
Yeah, wow, it's been a long time. So when I first met you and I heard you share your story, the first thing I thought was, okay, I got to have her on the show. Max was actually with me when we heard you.
I remember.
And I was like, okay, this is a powerful story. And I really wanted people to hear your testimony and then also hear about what you do, your business and stuff like that. So as we stated, I talked to you about earlier, we're gonna do a second show with you, but this show is gonna focus on how you walk the road of recovery. So why don't you start by telling a little bit about yourself and then we'll go from there.
About myself or about my injury?
Okay, so you start off talking about who you are, then we'll just lead up to the injury.
Okay, well, my name is Talia, like you said, and I've been a professional musician in the field for about 15 years now. And I've worked different types of events, from individual events to theater events to opera to hair to you name it. I love it. If it's music, if it's art, I try to be involved in the community. So I've taken my road of education from a very young age to explore all the different avenues of art so that I could be the best artist that I could be. And then as an extrovert, I love sharing that art with others. And so I have a natural tendency towards performance, but yeah, it's a little bit about.
So you was first introduced to music or an instrument, I should say, at the age of 5. Talk a little bit about that.
So if I'm remembering correctly, because I was 5, so who knows what I'm remembering, but if I remember correctly, my grandparents actually had a piano and they were moving, and they asked my parents to store it in their home until they had an opportunity to store it again. And as I recall, I don't think I got off that instrument very often. I didn't know anything about piano, but my sister would dance around while I would just bang the keys and sing, who knows, incoherently. And that's sort of how it started. My mom then talked to a neighbor, and one of the neighbors across the street both of her kids were taking piano lessons and highly recommended this woman. And so I started taking piano lessons after about a month, and she was absolutely fantastic.
Oh, wow. So when you first started taking piano lessons, did you feel yourself being drawn to it, or was it just something just to do?
I felt drawn to it personally. Yeah. I had a connection with the expression of sound, which not all children do, but I personally had that. And I feel like for me, for my personal journey, it had a lot to do with my own connections with the music itself, but also the input of my teacher. She was very good at bringing her students into it with whatever medium necessary. Well, so I like to draw. So she would always tell me to draw whatever the music meant to me. And so I then created this connection with visuals and auditory with music.
Wow, nice. So we're going to fast forward a little bit because I did a little research on you based off the information you sent me. And so what happened at the age of 13? Because you started to teach like vocal lessons as well.
At 13, I wasn't quite yet teaching, but that's when I got my first job working as a
Oh,
piano.
yeah. Okay, yes, exactly. So talk a little bit about that.
The local theater company, Imagination Theater, actually, I don't even remember how they knew me or I think they got my number from my current piano teacher, and they reached out and said, we're just looking for a young advanced musician to come and help us out with our show, Little Women.
Yeah,
And
wow.
just help us out on the piano. And apparently I came highly recommended by my piano teacher. And so I went in for an audition and started my journey. I actually did several years and several shows with them as an actress, as a singer, a set builder, and musician. But
Nice.
that kind of started the road of professional music for me, because that was my first
Nice.
job.
Nice. So I know you talked about your grandparents had the piano. So was anyone else, or are there anyone else in your family that is also into music or in the arts type of atmosphere?
Kind of. My grandmother who gave me the piano, she used to do water ballet when she was younger.
Nice.
My dad and his two brothers used to sing as a trio in church, and
Oh,
his
nice.
oldest brother, so my uncle, actually was performed in Vegas for many, many years as a vocalist. And my grandmother on the other side, my grandfather's a pastor, and so the grandmother, she always sings in church and plays the piano and learned to play the drums. So kind of, not only one other person in my family is professional, but we all enjoy
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. See, I think that's interesting how, you know, you find a talent in a family and sometimes it's passed down to other generations, or other generations in a family has some type of drive or passion for that particular talent, per se. Like you, like some people sing, some people dance, some people do poetry, some people play instruments and things like that. But it's kind of like all in the same family, so to speak. And that always, I find that very intriguing. So that's good. So let's fast forward a little bit about, we're gonna talk a little bit about the head injury. How old were you and what happened?
I think I was 21, 22, around that age. I had just recently graduated college with my AAs, and I was thinking about moving on to a bachelor's, and I actually went into college wanting to be an English teacher. I loved to read. I didn't want to do anything. I didn't want to be a professional musician. I was adamant I wasn't ever going to be a music teacher.
Yeah.
And because I'm a morning person, I don't like staying up late for those late night shows that musicians have to do.
Nice.
But so I was at the time working at a retail store while I was getting my certificate as a piano technician, and considering what I wanted to move on in my college education,
Yeah.
whether I wanted to do music or theater or English or teaching. And one day I left work, I went out to my car to grab my lunch, which was in my trunk. And I actually have no specific recollection of, but I put pieces together as I was telling people the story. Somehow the trunk of the car came down and hit me on the head. I don't know if I just opened it too quick and it just sort of bounced back, or
Yeah.
the wind blew just right and hit me. But it hit me in such a manner that the lock piece on the car that locks into the car hit me right here. And hit me with such force that I don't remember much other than holding my head, and next thing I know, I had a bunch of blood.
Yeah.
Just sort of panicked.
Yeah. Wow. So, wow. Okay, that's a lot. I didn't remember that part of your story. Interesting. I have a friend who years ago, he was hit by a car, and so he had brain cancer years ago. And some way, somehow, after they did the surgery and stuff, they put a metal plate on the left side of his brain where his head is. And so when he got hit, he fell on the side of the plate, which caused a little bit of internal bleeding. But eventually the bleeding stopped and he was okay. And the doctors told him if he would have landed on the other side, on the right side of his head, they said he would have died because of the force. but the plate saved life.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was pretty scary.
It's amazing how I even had one doctor at the time tell me, because it was right where like the skull connects, you've got those natural grooves in your skull. And if one doctor, although I don't know if this is accurate or not, because I had so many opinions, but he said that if it was one way more, it actually would have probably wedged its way in and maybe more damage. So it's amazing how the body is so resilient, and yet there's these tiny little spots that can cause big problems.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. So what happened? So the trunk door fell down on your head. So what happened after that?
I had the wherewithal. I was living with my parents at the time, and I had just gotten one of those, the smartphones had just come up with Siri. And so I couldn't remember my mom's number. I couldn't remember the lock code because it was before like the fingerprint recognition.
Yeah.
I couldn't remember the passcode to get my phone, but the phone heard me say, I need to call mom. I need to call mom. And so it just called mom for me, which was really nice. So she came and hung out with me for a bit, and we determined, we were like, well, it doesn't seem like you have any symptoms. The bleeding stopped. It was just, it hit you on the head. You seem to be fine. I was talking, I was walking.
Yeah.
So we didn't know anything about concussions, which since then I've done a lot of research and know a lot of people who've had concussions, and you need to rest. Instead, I went back to work and worked for another 6 hours in the retail store, stocking shelves on the top of a ladder, which was the worst thing I could have done.
Yeah.
So when it definitely did not help in my recovery at all that I didn't take the time to recover.
Yeah. So how did that incident? How did it affect your brain? Did it affect any memory loss? Like what happened? Like, did you have to seek treatment from any neurologist or?
I sought, so it took a few weeks of where I had constant headaches and I was starting to feel very tired. I couldn't sleep, and the symptoms just started slowly adding up over the few weeks and then months. And this actually lasted about 13, 14 months for me. But it was probably a month or two after we realized, hey, something's not right, and it must be because of the concussion, must be because of that hitting me on the head. We at the time didn't know it was a concussion. So we went and saw a doctor, and they're like, yeah, you definitely had a concussion. They did some scans. They said my entire brain was purple, which meant that it hit me with such force that the brain jiggled inside of my skull and bruised every part of it.
Yeah.
But other than that, they said I was fine, and so I shouldn't have any symptoms. But I did struggle with speaking. I did struggle with being in a room with noises. I did at one point hear electricity in the walls to the point of where I couldn't be in that room.
Yeah.
I sat for many days in the dark with earplugs because light and sound just overwhelmed me.
Yeah.
There were days where it was hard to walk, days where it was hard to eat things, days where I wouldn't sleep at all because I would just hear this pounding in my head that they assumed was my heart, but they could never quite figure out what it was. And it was this really scary time.
Yeah. And how did it affect your, not just you, but your family as well? How did it affect them? Because I know you guys pulled together and really tried to, and I'm sure they pulled together with you to try to be a support system to you, but how did it affect them?
It affected them in that I was always kind of a ticking time bomb. You never knew what was going to set me off, where one day I'd be completely fine and I was able to drive. And so my sister would go out and we'd do normal things that we would do. And then the next day, the beep of the microwave would set me into a panic attack for the rest of the day.
Yeah.
So it was an adjustment on everyone's part just to sort of keep an eye out and be like, at any given moment, something can change. My mother, who she actually homeschooled both me and my sister. And so she was very used to being very involved and helping us with anything we needed. So she very much took me under her wing and was like, okay, she was doing research on her own and she loves studying naturopathic and homeopathic things. So we were diffusing oils and rubbing things here and there and she definitely helped with that whole process of trying to make me comfortable as we figured out what to do.
Nice, nice. So you eventually went to see a chiropractor neurologist, I think, and that's when things start to look up for you, so to speak. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, let's get out of the dark hole here.
I know, right?
So we saw many doctors who just sort of wanted to push pills on me, and I had pre-existing conditions that a lot of it just made it worse.
Yeah.
So my mother heard of this chiropractor who also specialized in neurology. And she's like, well, that sounds interesting. And these pills and these standard medicine isn't working. Let's talk to him. And so he spent quite some time with me, and we did a cognitive ability test.
Yeah.
Kind of like what they do if they're going to pull you over for drunk driving, have you walk in a straight line and, say your alphabet backwards and different things to see how your brain is functioning. And I passed the test, but he could tell that it had winded me. I literally just fell into the chair at the end of it all and was about to fall asleep because my brain was just so overloaded I couldn't handle it.
Yeah.
And he's like, so I understand why the doctors are saying you're normal because you're able to complete these things, but it's not normal that at 10 o'clock in the morning, you're ready to go back to bed.
Yeah.
So he asked two simple questions. Do you speak another language, and do you play an instrument? And I had actually, during college one summer, taken a course to learn Spanish and become a translator because I thought that was one thing I might want to do. So I'm fluent in Spanish. And so my mother answered because I wasn't able to respond. She's like, well, she does speak Spanish and she's played piano since she was 5 years old.
Nice.
And he said, I can tell that your brain is high functioning. It's used to working on projects and doing all these different things. And right now, it only wants to do one thing at a time.
Yeah, wow.
And so after doing that was his neurologist side, coming to the chiropractic side, he felt around a little bit. And he's like, it feels like the spine has knocked off of the atlas bone, which is what your skull rests on your spine. Felt like it knocked off. And so the spine was actually resting on the brain. Wow. You're in constant fight and flight mode. So you need to get adjusted and you need to go home and you need to practice anything that will bring back your high cognitive levels, like speaking Spanish and playing music for yourself.
Wow. Wow. And wow, man, so when you heard that for you, what did you think at that time? Because you saw so many doctors, they prescribe medications and it seemed to make them out of words. So getting this different new piece of information for you, how did that make you feel? Did you think it was going to work? You're just like,
I was very leery and skeptical because at this point, I think we were probably 10 months into this. I had to quit my job. I was no longer pursuing school. I wasn't social anymore. And as an extrovert, I'm like, I was constantly somewhere.
Yeah.
So I wanted it to be true, but I didn't think that it would work because I'm like, I feel like it's got to be more than just that, doctor. Come on.
Yeah.
But, we were going to try it.
Yeah. So, man, this information is it's good information for me. And I hope that the people that see this, I hope they get a lot of good information out of this, because sometimes pills doesn't necessarily work for some people. For some people, it makes the situation a little bit worse. And so I think the natural way, it's beneficial for other people. I was talking to a friend on the phone today, and she had called COVID-19 a while back. And she had told me that she didn't go, she didn't really get the help through the traditional sense, through doctors and stuff, but she did the natural way. And she felt like that was more effective for her, opposed to, she had a friend who caught COVID, and her friend went through the natural way of things. I mean, well, the way the doctors recommend for her to go. And she said her friend took a lot longer to heal than she did, which was very interesting.
Well, and sometimes, like you said, sometimes the pills don't work themselves, but sometimes the natural way, as we're calling it, doesn't work well, but they need to work together.
Yeah.
And I later, as when you and I actually first met, I was actually studying that side of medicine and music, how those two actually coincide and how music can help get the body into a place where it can accept medicine and can start the healing process. It's really quite interesting.
Wow. So they told you to go home and work on do brain exercise. Okay. Now, at what point did that start, and what was the first thing did you actually do to actually start the brain exercise?
So I naturally went first to the Spanish because I thought, oh, this is something I could do. I don't have to move. I don't have to try that hard. It's just I could have the Spanish radio on. I could just turn like Spanish TV on. But I quickly found that my brain it was like, if there could be smoke coming out of my ears, the smoke would have been in my ears because it just didn't want to translate anything.
Yeah.
So I made my way to the piano, and I was like, I'm just going to choose the most basic song I know.
Mm-hmm.
At this time, I think I told you, the only remedy I'd found to my panic attacks was this one song that came from a soundtrack. And I knew it was in a 3/4 time signature. It was about 65 beats per minute, which is a really healthy, slow, resting heart rate. And so that's why I would listen to that piece to try to get me out of these anxiety attacks. So when I went to go play the piano, I went and I looked for some pieces, and I remember the first piece I came across was actually Feed the Birds from Mary Poppins.
Nice, yeah.
And I started playing it, and that 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 just really gave me a nice steady pulse to slow down my heart rate, to relax my breathing, and for a moment I felt free.
Wow. That's interesting. So how long did it take for you to actually continue to do the brain exercise when you felt like you felt and saw improvement in your health per se?
It's hard to say because every day, every week, every month was different, and there were all like I said, I had other pre-existing medical conditions that sometimes made one day harder than the other. Like I naturally have back and spine issues. And so doing something that would help my brain would sometimes adjust that, and then it'd be off for a while. But I'd say overall, I felt like I was starting to have a normal life probably about 5 months after that, of where I was playing constantly for myself and finding venues for me to play or outlets for me to just be immersed in music, and going back through college theory, music textbooks, and redoing work and transposing different things just to get my brain back into, oh, I remember this. Oh, I can do this. Oh, this goes here, and breathe through the process.
Yeah, I think that's important too. And it's interesting you talked about going back and redoing work and reading and things like that. I know for me, I'm a believer, and a lot of times, of course I read the Bible a lot, and I'll go back and like lately I've been studying the book of John, and I not only do I physically read it, but I have an audio Bible, and I put that on at night. So it's just constant, so I can get those scriptures in my memory and stuff like that. And it's very effective when we go back to those things that we once knew to kind of refresh our memory on certain things, whatever it may be to the individual.
Yeah, repetition. I mean, since then I've studied how the brain works, and it's really quite fascinating. By no means am I an expert though, but it's just what I've discovered in my own journey, and like, oh, well, this is why this song has more of a connection to me, is because it hits that neuron or whatever in my brain, and it makes that connection for healing, or it makes that connection for a memory, or it's amazing. It really unlocks the brain, redoing something that you've had in the past or that you've done in the past, and over again.
Yes, absolutely. And it also takes you back to certain places in your life as well. I know if I'm at the gym and I hear a song that I used to play when I was 15 or 20, and automatically I start thinking about what was going on in my life at that time when that song was, so it definitely has a very, it's very effective on the brain, I'd say. Now, how do you think music affects our mental health?
Greatly.
Yeah.
As you know, because when I first met you, I was actually working with a memory care facility.
Uh-huh.
And I was working towards getting my certified music practitionership to work with memory care patients using music to help them fight dementia and Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
And I mean, even in myself, there's certain things I've noticed that the more that I play music and the more that I've immersed myself into it, one, because it was something that was such in my childhood, it's bringing back all of the things, and I have an easier time remembering everything that I've learned in my life because music was a part of all of it.
Oh, wow.
And
Nice.
working with memory care or dementia and Alzheimer's patients, it's amazing what one song can do.
Mm-hmm.
If I may share a story.
Yeah, please.
There was this one woman, she's passed away since, but I used to go to this one facility and every week we would sing hymns. And that was just because back in their culture and their tradition of so many years ago, everyone went to church and everyone went to Sunday school and everyone sang the hymns. And so singing these hymns unlocked many, many things for them. But there was this one patient in particular. She was nonverbal, she was immobile, and she would just sort of sit there hunched. And one day I decided to go through and sing When We All Get to Heaven. She sat up in her chair, started singing along with me, stomping her feet to the beat of the music and clapping along.
Wow.
And her daughter was there, and her daughter just started crying. And after we finished the piece, she just sort of melted back into her pre-existing state and was nonverbal again.
Yeah.
And I asked my daughter, I was like, I've never seen her do that before. I've been coming here for 3 years. What is this? And she told me that she was a missionary to China, and that was her husband's favorite song.
Wow.
Sing that to each other if they were going through hard times or anything like that. And so it had such an emotional connection for her with her work of so many years of working with people and trying to spread the good news of Christ, or even just being with her husband. And so that one song just brought her back to, she had no pain, she had no limitations, and then once the song was over, she was back to who she was.
Wow. I think that's definitely a good story to share. I know I have friends who've been in the hospital, and some of the things that we do, me and the family, we will go out there, and I know I end up buying a little DVD player from Walmart and just got some worship songs, some DVDs from the time when he first got saved and things like that, and just try to jot down, what I would do, I would jot down just different things that was going on at that time and just kind of remind him as the music was playing. I did this actually when he was got his brain surgery, and just really, because I knew it was going to be a tough role for him and I would be up there just doing things like that. But I think it's important. I don't think a lot of people really know how effective music can be to the brain and how it can have a positive impact on your mental health. I feel like it's a little bit underrated per se. So I think that's why it's good that you're doing the work that you're doing, because you're raising a lot of awareness and for people to be really open to this type of therapy. I'm gonna call it therapy.
Yeah. Well, there's actually, I found out recently that in America, this has only been something that we've been talking about for the past 10 years.
Wow.
This is something that they've done. I mean, if you look at ancient China, if you look at even existing African tribes today or parts of India.
Yeah.
Eastern cultures, they've been using music as medicine for hundreds, thousands of years. And we're finally catching up in the past decade.
Yes.
That, oh, this actually helps, to the point of which I've read so many books, and you've got like the Mozart effect, and you have
Yeah.
other things by John Campbell that just, he has a lot of works that collect from different authors and different articles about how you listen to music before you go into surgery, and if the surgeon is listening to music during surgery, everyone is more calm. You're more likely to recover faster. They've used music to lower blood pressure. They've used music to help with drooling, to reverse deafness. There's so many things. And as we're discovering these, it's always funny because somewhere in an article will always be like, oh yeah, and we realized that China's been doing this for hundreds of years, or other countries have been doing this for hundreds of years. But it's so comforting to see that people are talking about it, and there are several organizations in America in particular that are starting to promote that, and especially in our local hospitals. 2 of them that I know of actually have music practitioners on staff.
Wow, nice.
Travel from room to room now to just be with patients with music as they recover, or before they go into surgery, or whatever the situation may be.
Yeah, wow. You know, as you was talking, it's really interesting, because I'm thinking now how, you know, when people work out and go to the gym, probably 90% of people have headphones on and they're listening to music, and it empowers them to finish their workout, or, you know, so I feel like that's all, it's been around for a longer than what we have been aware of. But I just feel like people are now just realizing that it could be used for therapy, when it's actually already been used in that manner. You know, like I went to the gym today, I had on my headphones and I'm listening to my music, and it gave me energy and motivated me, you know.
Try working out without music. It's almost impossible. It's
I know.
I can't do it anymore. Just no.
Exactly.
You're right. And it's way back, the movie Psycho, for instance, when you talk about soundtrack composers, that movie in particular is when they determined that music makes or breaks a movie, because that ding, ding, ding,
yeah,
shower, that changed how movie makers in particular viewed music, because they're like, oh, we can really bring in our audience with music, and raise your blood pressure level, and raise your heart rate, and raise your tension for these movies. And I mean, you even see it now with like soundtracks for video games.
Yes, exactly.
Like, why else? I mean, these video games are wonderful graphics and wonderful stories sometimes, but you wouldn't sit there for 10 hours doing a video game without this music driving you forward or bringing forward. So yeah, it's been there for a while, but it's only within the past decade we've been recognizing its true power in relation to healing in our body in a more medical manner.
Yes, exactly. So you said, are you currently, are you part of a local band here in Sacramento?
I am.
So talk a little bit about your band. Let's talk a little bit about your music you do. Yes.
Well, I was going to say I shouldn't say just. It's my church band.
Okay. Yeah, talk a little bit about it.
During my concussion, I love to sing. I love to play the piano. I know a little bit of drums and different instruments. And during my recovery of the concussion, I was like, I need to be around people, and I need to be around people with music.
Yeah.
And I talked to the worship pastor at our church, and she was like, you just need to come to church, and you need to come to choir. And I was like, well, I'm already sold. So I joined the choir.
Yeah.
We put me in the alto section, even though I'm a soprano, because the soprano notes, they bring a lot more frequency and vibration inside your skull, which would give me a headache during the time. So singing in the lower sort of chesty notes helped get rid of the frequencies vibrating in my brain. And then she slowly added me onto just playing the piano. And so I haven't stopped since then. And it's such a blessing. I mean, during the quarantine and COVID, we haven't been able to do much, but now
Yeah.
that we're like, okay, well, we could be socially distant, like 6
Right.
feet apart, we can record things and send them into each other. And during the first time, I feel during the first time of first month or two of COVID, I felt like I was going through the concussion again a bit, where I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm missing my music and my people.
Yeah.
But when I went back to the band practice and rehearsal, once we were able to do it in a safe manner, I was like,
Yeah.
oh, it just,
Yeah.
weight was lifted from my shoulders. I was rejuvenated again. I'm like, oh, this is all I needed. I didn't need medicine. I didn't need this, that, and the other thing. I just needed music.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. Okay. That's good to know. It's good to know. So, wow, that's good to know. What church are you a part of? You mind me asking?
No, I don't mind you. It's Sunrise Community off of Greenback and Sunrise in Orangevale.
Okay. Okay. Well, not too far from where I live.
Oh, awesome.
That's good. So what would you say to somebody who was passionate about music and wanting to really, use music for some type of therapy or just really seek that passion? What advice would you give to them if they felt like that they're not talented enough or they're more of an introvert? Like what advice would you give that person?
I have met so many wonderful introverted musicians.
Mm-hmm.
Like sometimes the most amazing musician is the introverted one. So it doesn't matter because they're more introspective usually.
Yeah. Yeah.
It doesn't matter your personality. Everyone can enjoy music and everyone does enjoy music. I've never met a person who says, I don't like music. That's just unheard of. But you're never too old to learn. You're never too old to start. I actually have a parent of one of my students just called me and asked me that same question. So he's actually starting to take piano lessons. And he was like, well, I don't know. And I'm like, adults always want to take music, but they're always scared to try something new. But the fact is, if you listen to the radio, if you go to church and you sing at church, if you ever go to like karaoke bars, or if you just go to a baseball or football or basketball game or anywhere where there's music, let's face it, if you go to the store, there's music.
Yes, exactly.
You've already been exposed. You already know more than you know.
Yeah.
And everyone has a different journey with music. So I've had some adults who come to me and they're like, I want to learn music for XYZ and I want to accomplish this. And then I choose that. So for some, you may want to find a teacher to help you through it. There's plenty of YouTube videos. Find your passion. And if you're wanting to pursue music as like a career in therapy, there's actually, that I know of, 2 different ways to do that. There's a music therapy program, which there's some programs in the area. And then there's a therapist musician program. It's different in that one, the music therapy is actually like licensed for medicine and medication. And the other is a therapeutic musician, is a musician who understands the healing properties, but is not part of a medical team or a doctor. So there's, like I said earlier, we're opening up to so many possibilities, and internet is a wonderful search tool.
Yes. So one of the reasons why I continue to pursue you to be on the show was because when you talked about your business or what you do and about your story, it actually enlightened me. Yeah, because at first I never had did a show like I'm doing now, but I never looked at music from a healing perspective, to be honest with you. And although I'm a believer and I listen to worship music and stuff like that, it just never crossed my mind to put that in that perspective until I heard you talking. And I'm like, oh man, this is so true. And I got to share it with different people and stuff. And so I wanted to really get people to know and hear your story, and so that people can also be inspired as well. You talked about people that you've met being introverts that is into music. My cousin is an introvert, and he has a full-blown studio. Like, he actually make music, and he's an introvert. And when you said that, just caught my attention and stuff. So, wow, that's awesome. That's awesome. So what's next for you? What's next for you as far as what you're doing, your passion for music? What do you feel is next for you?
Well, as you know, I own a company. I actually started this several months outside of my concussion healing. So while I was still healing, I started a company called Voz Alta Studio, which is Spanish for out loud, because I believe
Yeah.
that needs to be shared and out loud, and I thought it just sounded fun. But my passion is to get this company more expanded and getting us more into sharing what I have learned with different communities that need it. Right now, we focus on senior living care communities and schools that have had their arts budgets cut.
Yes.
The youth and the elderly are usually the ones that are needing the most help with
Yes.
with recovery or with growing. And I found that music touches us all, but those two generations, for some reason, music just really impacts them a lot more than those of us right in the middle span.
Yeah.
So for me, it's continue to pursue this knowledge of what different ways has music been used or is being used, and how can we spread that to the community at large. And I feel like I'm a believer as well, and I feel like God has blessed me with the insight to create a company in which we can work with local musicians and educators to share who have the same vision and share this with anyone who wants to listen.
Yes. Okay. Well, thank you so much. We have run out of time, but I thank you so much for just taking time out and just sharing your testimony, your journey, and most importantly, your passion. Mm-hmm. We definitely going to do another show to just kind of talk about more about, we're going to focus more on your business and just kind of, hopefully we can have people to watch this particular video, and hope people will get inspired. And you may even get people to reach out to you too. So thank you so much for being on our show, and we will definitely talk soon.
Thanks, Jesse. Thanks for being persistent. That's been
Oh yeah. This was needed. This was needed. I locked you down on my personal phone, and I know we kept missing each other. I'm just like, okay, she's busy. Okay. And I'm like, let me give it. Now I always will wait for like 3 months, 4 months. I'm like, let me see if I can hit her up now. Oh, this ain't gonna work today. So I'm like, okay. And I felt like one day, Lord, I said, you're gonna open that door at the right time for us to do this show.
And here we are.
Yes. So thank you so much. That's it for today's edition of Mental Health Matters. If you enjoyed this particular show, if you would like a DVD copy of the show, or if you would even like to get a hold of our guests, please dial 916-366-4600. Thank you.